Monkey D. Dragon and Monkey D. Luffy have always been different from his first appearance back in Locktown saving Luffy and approving of his pirate career. A very dark, mysterious character, the complete opposite of Luffy, social, outgoing. When you look at how they were raised in comparison, Luffy seemed to have more freedom than Dragon, hence him leaving the Marines and starting his organization as the Freedom Fighters. Yes, it was called the Freedom Fighters before the Revolutionary Army. Finally going his own path, whereas Luffy always went his old path. Now I must admit we are getting a closer look at Dragon like we have never seen before, like him questioning his supervisors about the goal of the operation on God Valley, to Dragon reluctantly shooting two men trying to escape the island, though he justifies it saying it's only tranquilizers, but deep down he knows he just sent those men to a death sentence. We even see Shanks' mom begging Dragon to not let Garling raise her kids, but he refuses as his entire platoon will be executed if he defies the Celestial Dragon. Something I believe Garp and Luffy would have done regardless of the Celestial Dragon reaction. But Oda is giving Dragon a main character spotlight in this Loki flashback of the God Valley incident, highlighted by Roger, Garp, and Rocks. I know, confusing, but hang with me for a bit. As Oda showing the change in Dragon, from him almost throwing up seeing all the dead bodies on the island, to him shooting a Celestial Dragon to save Kuma, Ivankov, and Ginny, who later became his commanders. We even get him returning to save Shanks and Shamrock, and is actually shocked they're not crying after witnessing the atrocities of the Celestial Dragon. It's like Celestial Dragons are born heartless, and Shanks hitting his head made him steer off a different path. Reminds me of Goku. All I'm gonna say is Oda gave Dragon insane development. I haven't seen him give Luffy in that short amount of time, so subscribe to the channel and turn on notification as we do a deep dive on Luffy and his father, Monkey D. Dragon. Now, one thing that is recently being discussed after Monkey D. Dragon's highlight is the Holy Knight named Maffy low diffing him with a Pacifista laser. And I think a lot of people are comparing Dragon at 17 years old to Luffy at 19 years old. Yes, the Luffy that has Gear 5, Gear 4, Luffy that has Kankasaki Coding, Future Sight, and 2 levels of Advanced Armament Haki, Luffy that just fought Kaido, Kizaru, Saturn, and pretty much the rest of the Gorosei, and is now on Elbaf with Imu himself being there. Yes, no, you got to compare Luffy as 17 years old when he left for his pirate journey to this dragon. And if anything, that's being kind, because let's be honest here, Luffy was training his ass off before he became a pirate. Like, he was training and Kuma was overseeing him train, and Dragon seems to be just beginning his training of the Marines. It looks like Garp really wasn't there for Dragon to make him a monster. I also found it very interesting how Dragon believes the babies are his only way to atone for setting up a twisted murder game. And Dragon also says it's considering all the dead, that's probably what he deserves himself. This kind of gives me Kobe Marineford vibes when he unlocks Operation Haki, seeing all the people dying and him having a moment where he stands up to Akainu and to stop the killing, and he's satisfied if Akainu kills him because he said what he needed to say. This is where I get the same feeling with Dragon. It's crazy how Dragon reminds me more of Kobe than Luffy, who I think Kobe will be Luffy's rival in the end of the story. But sometimes the thing is, just because Luffy and Dragon are blood related doesn't mean they have to have the exact same personality. Just look at your own real life. Look at your parents, look at your uncle, look at your siblings. Just because you guys are family by blood doesn't mean you guys are exactly the same. You guys have maybe same tendencies and we're raised the same, but then in the day we're all different in our own unique way. Then we also see Whitebeard saving Dragon, and pretty much an interesting moment where Oda doesn't just give Whitebeard saving Dragon with Big Mom standing next to him, these 2 huge pirates that Dragon's overseeing, but he also shows Garp. Yes, he shows Garp, the father of Dragon, chasing Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido. And this gives me Kobe Shanks vibes. I know people are gonna get mad at me for comparing Dragon to Kobe, but I just gotta be honest, yo. I'm getting Kobe Shanks vibes when Shanks saved Kobe from Akainu. I got a similar vibe here. Not the exact same, but it kind of reminded me of it. And I honestly believe Dragon seeing Big Mom, Whitebeard, and Garp, I think this was needed, because we have to understand, right now Dragon is being considered top 5 strongest in the One Piece series. Yes, and that is in contention. People are debating it. Some people even believe that Luffy, his son, is stronger than Dragon. So to see Dragon seeing these monsters on God Valley, it's good for Dragon's character, because we now know it's been 38 years since the God Valley incident, and Dragon should have gained some strength in those 38 years, and him seeing the top of the top will definitely give him a benchmark of what he needs to do to actually stop the world government. Now, this video isn't solely on me discussing Monkey D. Dragon, what we noticed on God Valley. It's more so to see the contrast between Monkey D. Dragon and Monkey D. Luffy. And if you just look at Garp himself, Luffy and Garp are brawlers. They kind of remind me with the same personality, and they have the same fighting style. Garp with his fist, Luffy with his body, his fist, his legs. Luffy's a brawler as well with his, of course, Nika Dog Fruit, which gives him the utmost freedom. His father's trying to do the freedom fighters. There's a lot of connections here. But I want to talk about how Garp and Luffy were raised in the forest fighting animals. But in my opinion, Dragon is not a brawler. He actually hates fighting. This is confirmed by Vegapunk. And you have to understand, when Garp was in his prime, when he was chasing Roger, Rocks, Whitebeard, Cheeky, all the legends, don't forget, this was a time where Dragon was being raised. So Garp wasn't there for Dragon. He had actually more time being there for Luffy than Dragon, because when Luffy was being raised, at least Garp was kind of nearing his retirement. But when Dragon was being raised, Garp was in his prime, throwing hands with the Pirate King, throwing hands with Rox D. Zebek or Davy D. Zebek, throwing hands with Edward Newgate, Charlotte Linlin, Kaido, Shiki, Silver Axe, Captain John. Garp was considered the devil to all these pirates. So you think he has time to see what's going on with Dragon? No. I even remember a moment in Zou where Oda even highlights Dragon and Luffy do not look the same. Yes, when Luffy sees his father for the first time, they do not have a resemblance, and this is talked about by Nami, I believe, and the Straw Hats and Luffy. And I think Oda did this purposely, intentionally, to show that just how they're different personalities, they even are different in how they look. Now, I do gotta say, when Dragon was 17 years old, he did have a striking resemblance to Snake Man Luffy, so I think Oda does like do references there. At the end of the day, Luffy looks more like Garp than he ever looked like Dragon. And just look at pretty much their character as well. We know Luffy's more of the sensitive type. Nami calls him selfish. The entire Straw Hat Pirates think Luffy's selfish, but he's also very sympathetic. Some of the greatest sympathetic moments are from Luffy. Every island he goes to, he has sympathy for the island people who are going through hardship, and that's why they look at him as a hero, even though he doesn't want to take the claim of hero. And then you have Dragon, where Dragon is not as sensitive as Luffy. He's actually more cold-like. It seems like he has no emotions, but instead of Luffy's sympathetic, Dragon is more empathetic, where he wants the people to fight for themselves, as seen in the Sabo flashback or the ASL flashback, when he tells people, if you are willing to fight, come join the ship. He gives them a choice. He's more empathetic. He wants people to get stronger, and I feel like that's super interesting in the contrast. They're both doing good things. They're both very emotionally intelligent, but they're doing it in completely different ways, and I love that what Oda is trying to highlight the difference between these characters. And like I said, Dragon has waited 38 years since the God Valley incident, where Luffy has only waited 2 years since the Marineford War, showing the difference of patience and planning compared to learn as you go. Yes, Dragon is more the patience guy, the planner. He's willing to plan years in advance to get what he wants done, whereas we get Luffy, where he wants to learn as he goes. Like, he just wants to go through so many experiences and then use these experiences to, of course, transform the future. That's the difference between Dragon and Luffy. They're both, in a sense, not really super in the moment, and they both have an understanding of the different possibilities and the future, but they do it in different ways. I think Luffy's more so surveying every single possibility through his actions, where Dragon is more so planning through others' actions. And I love that difference and similarity in these father and son. Even in the way they think, Dragon to me seems super logical, and definitely that logic comes from what he surveys in the moment, and he will only move when the Holy Knights move. Like, that's an example right there. Whereas Luffy is more so of the strategic, off of past experiences, like learning Gear 2nd, Gear 3rd, Gear 3rd obviously from the Dory and Brocky Giants, Gear 2nd through Lucci's Shave, and just getting stronger through his battle with Aokiji. So I definitely believe in Gear 4th, that's definitely from the island where he was fighting the animals. And you have to understand, this is the difference. Dragon is logical, Luffy's thinking is strategic, and it's both good thinking, but it's different at the end of the day, and that's what I like to see. Where Luffy just blurts out whatever's on his mind, Dragon seems to keep what's on his mind till the moment he actually wants it to be revealed. Now, even though Luffy has reached Yonko status and is one of the strongest characters in the series currently, I do still think Dragon is currently stronger than him. Just look at Sabo and the Dragon Claw, Dragon Breath. He was doing just roaster early on, post time skip. His advanced armor haki hacks. And you're trying to tell me that his leader doesn't have insane haki? If Sabo, who wasn't even a Delphi user, just straight haki, is doing that? Plus his wind style Delphi that's probably going to be revealed soon. It might be a mythical zone, a legendary mythical zone like Luffy's Nika, like Imu's Delphi, like Loki's. Or it could just be a Wind Logia. Regardless, he has some sort of legendary Delphi, maybe even used from the first world we just learned in Albath. And I think he received his Delphi from God Valley, as there was a lot of treasure chests and legendary Delphis here, guys. Now, if you're going to talk about Luffy and Dragon, you got to talk about what's going to happen after this flashback. Well, this is my opinion. Luffy's going to fight Shamrock. Shamrock looks exactly like Shanks. And Luffy versus Shamrock is an interesting battle because you have to understand that Shamrock is a Holy Knight. He just devoured Loki, and he seems to be like the main villain of Elbaf. Imu isn't actually physically here. Then we have Dragon versus Garling. Garling is pretty much from God Valley. He's a Gorosei now. He's probably the strongest Gorosei, and Dragon's trying to defeat the world government. So, and Dragon talks about the Holy Knights. Garling used to be the strongest Holy Knight. I do think that we get this. And when we see Dragon versus Garling, we see Shanks' mother finally be revealed. There's a reason why Oda hid Shanks' mother. There's something going on there. We see some of the God Valley lore from the perspective of Garling through Garp, Dragon's father, Roger, Shaki, and more. And we even have, after these fights, Luffy meet his father after, of course, they're done respected battles, leading to a clash, a confrontation with Imu. And I think Imu will actually kill Dragon before Luffy fights him, giving Luffy more motivation to take down Imu, because right now he has literally zero motivation to take down Imu, other than Imu being a piece of shit. And Imu not liking Luffy because he, of course, has inherited Joy Boy's Delphi, the Nika fruit. And my final thing I want to say is this. There's one last road poneglyph that, of course, everyone's after. And we've seen, of course, Eustace Kid talk about it with Robin and Law very interested. We've seen, of course, Blackbeard Pirate talk about it with Aokiji. I personally believe that poneglyph is guarded by Dragon. They said if Cyclone is caused by the man marked by flames in his black ship, we know Dragon has a black ship. We know he has some sort of wind power. And I do think Dragon is going to be protecting that last world poneglyph. And he will give Luffy that last world poneglyph. And it's going to be interesting to see Dragon interact with Luffy there. Maybe Dragon will even interact with Teach, who we know Dragon was on God Valley like Teach. So I do think that we're going to see a moment of Luffy, Dragon finally meet. And Luffy will go to Laugh Tale. And Dragon will go, of course, to the Holy Land where he will fight Imu. And after Luffy finds the One Piece, that's when the greatest war starts. It's going to be epic. It's going to be hype. It's going to be insane. And I just thought I should talk about Luffy and Dragon differences before I go in depth with Monkey D. Dragon, because there's still so much after what we've just seen. Like, I can go on and on about Monkey D. Dragon. Yo, there's a lot to talk about.